question 10, we've got some information in the form of a bar chart about the production of electricity in 2016. So along the side we've got the percentage of the total amount, and along the bottom we've got some different energy resources. Okay, so what we've got to do, the question starts on the next page. So in April 2016, the UK government signed the Paris Climate Agreement, where we committed to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere. Okay, so looking back at that bar chart, we need to explain which energy resources we should be using in order to fulfill our commitment to that agreement. So the key things that we need to be talking about here is that in order to fulfill that commitment, we need to be reducing the amount of carbon dioxide we're producing. Okay, so the things that therefore we ought to be looking at is we ought to be looking at nuclear. Okay, producing energy by nuclear power does not produce any carbon dioxide or any other greenhouse gases, plus it has the benefit of being reliable. Okay, and we get a lot of energy per kilogram of fuel. Okay, we already have some existing nuclear power stations, and some more are in the process of being built. Okay, the other thing we ought to be looking at from that list is wind. Again, while producing, there is no carbon dioxide or any other greenhouse gases. It also has the benefit of being renewable, and it also has the benefit of there are no fuel costs. Okay, so those are the two that we ought to be looking at in order to reduce our CO2. Point 2 tells us that on average there's enough wind in the UK every year to supply all of our electricity needs. However, we need to explain why we still need power stations that use fuel. Okay, so this is coming back to the idea that we mentioned earlier, that wind power, in common with several of the renewables, is unreliable. So while on average it's going to give us enough energy, there are going to be days where it doesn't give us enough energy. When the wind is low, there won't be enough power to meet demand. Okay, so we talk about there being a base load, so a minimum amount of electricity that we need to produce every day. Wind power, we can't guarantee every day it'll be able to do that. Okay, then the last part of question 10. All European countries signed that agreement back in 2016. So in the future, some European countries are only going to allow electric vehicles. We need to suggest how this is likely to affect methods of electricity generation. Okay, so if we aren't going to have vehicles that run on petrol or diesel or other fuels that come from oil, if these are going to be electrical, then this is going to add to the demand for electricity. So that's the first thing we could say. The demand for electricity will increase because everybody will be charging their cars instead of putting petrol or diesel in them. Okay, so if we're still going to meet those CO2 targets, that means that we need to be using more nuclear power, and we need to be using more wind and some other renewables. Otherwise we'll just be burning more coal and more gas to make electricity and making the same amount or more carbon dioxide than we've ever made in the past before. Okay, but if we do it this way with more nuclear and with more wind and other renewables, we'll be still hopefully meeting the Paris Agreement.